Hello and welcome back once again to Viper Bites, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Head over to fantasypoints.com right now, enter promo code Vipers22 and get 10% off that Fantasy Points subscription. Now let's talk about dynasty assets. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns. There is a lot to uncover here in a very short period of time. Let's start at the running back position with Nick Chubb, currently the expert consensus ranking RB10. The 23rd overall player coming off of most boards as far as experts are concerned. Chubb and Hunt, one of the more prolific running back tandems in the National Football League. There's only a handful of combinations out there that will challenge to have two 1,000-yard rushers in the same season, something that hasn't been done since 2009 when the Carolina Panthers duo of Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams accomplished that feat. As for Chubb, he leads the league in yards after contact over the last 3 seasons while ranking second in missed tackles forced per attempt. Last season, Chubb would finish with an elusive rating of 93.6, which led all running backs. It's hard to argue Chubb's status as one of the top pure runners in the league. Look for the Browns to run the ball plenty in 2022 and the yardage to continue to pile up for Nick Chubb. At wide receiver, Amari Cooper. Experts have him as the wide receiver 27, the overall 58th player coming off the boards there. Number one receivers really haven't planned out very well for the Browns in recent memory, but they haven't been afraid to swing for the fences. I mean, the Browns, hey, to their credit, if this guy doesn't work, we're still going to take a swing at someone else. They had Odell Beckham Jr., they had Jarvis Landry come and go, and while there are some good moments, ultimately, these players haven't worked out for them. Regardless of whoever is under center, Cooper will likely see his target share from last season increase from 15.9% to wherever Cleveland quarterbacks see fit here in 2022 and beyond. Now, while his target share may increase, his targets, they may not. We know the whole situation with Desean Watson and how that might play out, but right now I'm going to look at this as 2022 with Jacoby Brissett likely handling a majority of those snaps. So be wary of that. Although Watson, he could come back. We don't know what that situation is going to be. Cooper could see very similar production when Watson's back in the lineup that DeAndre Hopkins got accustomed to with Watson back in their Houston Texan days. Even Brandon Cooks recorded a 1,000-yard season with Watson back in 2020. Hey, IDPers, I got you covered. You have arguably the top edge defender in the National Football League in Myles Garrett. Some have him as high as the top-rated defensive end. Consensus ranking has him as the number 2 guy there. When looking at edge rushers, you have to start with Browns leader on defense here with a 22.5% pass rush win rate per PFF there since 2020. Garrett's 58.5 sacks are the 12th most all-time through a player's first 5 seasons. And getting to the quarterback, a career high 16 times a season ago, you could probably pencil him in for another double-digit sack season here in 2022. Heck, pencil that in for 2023, 2024, and 2025 while we're at it, because we love to work ourselves in Dynasty 3-year windows. We talked about Nick Chubb. Let's talk about the other running back here for the Cleveland Browns. While Chubb averaged 5.5 yards per carry last season, Hunt was almost as effective, averaging 4.9 yards per carry in the 8 games in which he was available. While Hunt still remains a value in Cleveland, in 27 games splitting carries with Nick Chubb, Hunt has averaged 13.5 fantasy points per game. And when he becomes a free agent after the 2022 season, he could become a huge value for whoever picks him up. So fantasy managers, now is the time to get him on your roster before he signs somewhere else, before the value kind of skyrockets there. Along with Chubb, Hunt has always been one of the more elusive backs in the league, ranking near the top in missed tackles forced per attempt. History is there for Hunt. In 2022, he was a top 10 fantasy back, even with Chubb splitting those carries. And back in 2017, back in 2018, he was a top 12 option as well. Now let's talk about that quarterback position here for the Cleveland Browns. Desean Watson is still being regarded as a top 12 quarterback in dynasty rankings. He is still a top 100 player overall, again, in those dynasty rankings, as per the expert consensus rankings as they are. First off, I'm not counting on Watson to be under quarterback anytime soon. We've heard anything from indefinite suspension to 4 to 6 games. I don't know what that's going to be like. So right now we're just kind of trying to figure out what that may be at the time of the recording of this video. Now, when the season kicks off, we'll probably have a better understanding of what that looks like. But the NFL, we know, is seeking that longer suspension because of those off-field allegations, which we're not going to dive into too much detail right now because legal stuff is not my expertise. But Watson, after the 2022 season, we know he's going to be there in 2023, 2024, and probably long-term because the Cleveland Browns gave him a boatload of cash to become a Cleveland Brown. When he does step onto that field, he is going to step into that pocket vacated by Baker Mayfield. It was one of those clean pocket type throws that didn't do Baker Mayfield very well. Mayfield ranked 7th worst with those clean pockets there and completed just 71% of those passes. We know what Watson is capable of. There's no doubt about that. But we haven't seen him in any kind of game action since 2020. And in that 2020 season, though, Watson would lead the league in yards per attempt, 8.9, passing yards, 4,823, while adding another 444 yards on the ground. We love ourselves that Konami Code type quarterback in fantasy. So no matter what Watson has done in his past, fantasy managers are going to look for ways to add him to their roster because of what he can do for their teams. Right or wrong, we are looking for value. And right now, Watson's going to give you that long-term value as a Cleveland Browns quarterback. The talent is always going to be there. Now, when we look at these guys here, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Amari Cooper, Myles Garrett, Desean Watson, these are all 5 very strong fantasy assets right now. If you have any of these guys right now on your roster, you're sitting pretty good. For Nick Chubb, a guy you can plug and play right away. Kareem Hunt is a flex option here who could see himself as an RB1 as soon as next season. Myles Garrett, IDPers, you know what he's capable of. Amari Cooper's value is really tied into whoever's under center, whether that be Jacoby Brissett or Deshaun Watson. And we know, like I said, what Deshaun Watson is capable of. He's capable of a 5,000-yard passing season, especially with a guy like Amari Cooper. We saw him with Brandon Cooks. We saw him with DeAndre Hopkins. Amari Cooper is just as talented as either one of those wide receivers. So Deshaun Watson is going to be feeling pretty good there. He's also got Donovan Peoples-Jones to throw the ball to as well. So this Browns offense is very capable of putting up fantasy points in a hurry. And you know where else you can get fantasy points? At fantasypoints.com. Enter promo code Vipers22 and get 10% off that subscription today. Yes, that's Vipers22 over at fantasypoints.com. And while you're there, tell them Matt sent you. And while you're checking out other things to do, make sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, and hit that subscription button here on the Vipers Network. And if you're listening to us on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, take a second and rate and review us. And we'll see you next time. Take care.